Cheers, Father.
Cheers, son.
Back after a break.
Yeah. This is the new season.
Yeah, season 2.
Right.
Or season 1, maybe. First was pilot.
Right.
Pilot episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, still kind of coming online with my words. But did you have any thing in particular you've wanted to talk about? Oh, wow, look at this.
Oh. Cool. Praying.
For the camera, there's a praying mantis on my shoulder. It's like tan and doing a sword-like dance. Will it decapitate me?
No.
Wow. Yeah, can you... This is a good one.
Yeah.
Wow. Such a poise.
Yeah.
Such like a blade master's grace. I think it may try to
Now what?
defeat your phone.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, it's got such a boxer's
Yeah. Bobbing and
sway.
weaving.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I know this. There's nowhere to eat, nothing to eat near where you are, dude.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm imposing some connotations of omens of today, where Jade is doing a 3-part salon. Part 2 is today on truth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the mantis is one of
Where does
the
she
blade,
do them?
the blade of truth, of discernment. What's that?
Where does she do them?
At her house.
Yeah.
In her very beautifully curated drawing room that is the front room of her house. That was
Oh.
yeah, just made for the salon.
I see. It's good to recognize that.
Yeah.
Truth.
Truth.
Very tricky.
Yeah, it's beauty, truth, and goodness. And so we've done beauty thus far.
Okay.
Today is on truth. Yeah, hence my prompt, which I guess we can dive into that if you want to.
Okay, now what?
Yeah, so I guess the camera, the mantis, is still, he is not done with this conversation.
No.
He is now nearing father, deciding whether he will live or die.
Oh, there he is. Closer. Closer. He approaches the potential prey.
Suppose we probably should put him down somewhere. Do you want to? Oh yeah, you can use one. Lest he completely steal the show. It's so cool.
No.
So he must have jumped.
I don't know. He went around to the other side, so I can't see him.
Okay. He'll be back.
I don't know. Hey, Cora. How's it going? Truth. Very interesting. I've mostly been thinking about Chico lately.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
The slow coup in Butte County generally, the Board of Supervisors and the Chico City Council.
The slow coup.
I guess it's not really a coup, just a slow takeover.
What is that? What's happening?
Well, just the conservatives. I'm not really satisfied with that label, but you know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. The people who are like, we should do something about homelessness.
Yes.
Other than
we should get it out of here.
Yeah, we should get it out. Like
Right.
This isn't good.
Yeah.
Those people who said this isn't good.
All right. That bunch.
Yeah.
And I saw a letter.
Citizens for a Safe Chico, something like that.
Who?
Citizens for a Safe Chico.
Right.
That
like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a letter to the ER that, you know, kind of mentioned that, and the new city manager's long history and cozy relationships with the, you know, moneyed interests, and his history when he was on the council, right around the time we got here. And in some ways, the whole thing is largely, or this writer alleged that it was because of green people and others not voting.
That's why they won.
Well, that's what they're saying. I mean,
Yeah.
at least it does indicate that whatever's going on here is just barely democratic, because there aren't enough people involved, you know, to have any real consensus or notion of what the majority actually wants. But you can make them vote. And although in Australia you have to vote or they'll come and get you. Voting is a requirement, which is not bad.
That
You can
seems
see that.
backwards, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the whole notion is that you have the liberty to say something.
If you want to.
Yeah, if you want to. That's
Right.
that feels like the crucial element. Like you should. It implies the liberty not to. Um,
Well,
I think instead there should be incentives for voting. Like you can. It's a certain amount of writing off of taxes or something,
oh,
rather than punishment.
mm-hmm.
There should be incentives for voting.
Yeah, and I could see something like that, or
Yeah, tax write-off for civic engagement, something like that.
right,
You know?
right. Or on the ballot, you could have a third box for no, thank you, none of the above, or something. It's forcing that binary, which is not entirely uh, isn't the case across the board, but mostly it's a binary you have to choose from. And that's fairly artificial. Although having two major parties and 350 million people is absurd. I don't know how else to think of it. And it must take a lot of effort to keep that tamped down. It's much smaller populations have way more choices, more groupings, parties. But I don't have any answers. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know that there is one answer. And that's the truth. I don't know.
Yeah, so I watched Dead Poet Society for the first time
Oh,
the other night, and at the suggestion of Jade and insistence, um, yeah, it's been on my radar for my whole life,
mm-hmm.
and I finally saw it, and it's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Fuck. Yeah, it's just so beautiful and
That's really
devastating.
mostly what I remember.
Devastatingly beautiful,
Yeah.
And tragic in ways, but ultimately victorious. In at least it's it carries it through
Mm-hmm.
amidst the tragedy of the fundamental tragedy of the movie that happens. It does still carry through to the good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful movie. I guess for those that have not seen it, it's about this all-boys school that is not quite a boarding school. Or I guess would it be considered a boarding school? I don't know what the I associate a militant aspect to the boarding school, but it's uniforms, all boys.
And they live there.
They live there. Yeah, they live there throughout the whole school year. There's a strong tradition to everything, and a pretty
Mm-hmm.
rigid structure to things of how you operate and how you
Mm-hmm.
act, and then Robin Williams shows up as an English teacher, and introduces this class of boys to romantic poetry and the notion of poetry and the notion of expression and thinking for yourself, and
Stuff they haven't run across before.
things they had only dreamed of.
Yeah.
And in the process, they all like really flower and come into being, and yeah, really beautiful movie, and there's a character named Todd, played by a young Ethan Hawke, who is like horribly shy, will like take himself out of situations in order to not deal with how intense they are. I would rather be completely alone than have any sort of spotlight on him. Classic shy kid. And he's really this, it's kind of, in a way, it's his story. Like, the whole movie goes around a handful of these kids and their journeys, but he is kind of like the center personality that's coming into being through the whole movie. And yeah, he's got this really beautiful journey, and Robin Williams, his character John Keating, there's one scene in particular of him, of Keating, the teacher, basically having Todd, guiding Todd through writing a poem spontaneously in front of the class out loud.
Oh.
And yeah, it's such a crazy, beautiful scene of like Todd seeing him mature and open up in the moment. And this fatherly teacher, Robin Williams, really attentively guiding him through the whole thing, and like listening to him and helping him through this field to like a really victorious moment of having made a poem, and like,
Right.
and the whole class is like in suspended silence at how beautiful of a moment it was, and everyone's cheers for him, and yeah, there's a lot of things I could say about it, but there's this specific point in the scene where Robin Williams is helping him imagine basically Walt Whitman. They start with this photo of Walt Whitman, and the poem proceeds from there.
Okay.
And basically taking him through some like paint by numbers poem experience in the moment. and yeah, and what there's this critical moment that I'm still I'm still a little slow, so it's hard to like get the words. Yeah, something was captured in that scene, something really true about the creative process was captured in that scene. Like, they conveyed a complete creative process. And there's this critical moment where, as Robin Williams is guiding Ethan Hawke character through like oh wow, there's this little hummingbird that's trying to like perch on top of the fountain, but it's wet, so he's just slipping and trying to do it again.
a little higher up and you can pull it off, dude. It's worth the effort.
Where he's just so afraid of saying something stupid, and in the moment of it, like he's like, okay, so close your eyes, what is he doing? How is he moving? What is he saying? And then once he gets to like, what is he saying? This Walt Whitman character in his mind, he just he's trying to get him to pour out freely, speak freely. And as he does so, he like utters something about a wet, cold blanket. And it comes out really like awkward and like kind of out of nowhere in a way, and the whole class laughs like, what the fuck was that? But it's really awkward and just comes out, but Robin Williams is like, no, don't pay attention to them, keep going.
Right.
And so he does, and then he follows that through this like weird image of a cold wet blanket, and then like follows through with this just real raw expression of like basically his terror.
Yeah.
And then the whole class is like, oh. Wow.
I see.
and yeah, and it's like, it really stuck with me. That particular moment where he says he's building up a momentum, and then he says something that like seems stupid or embarrassing or like out of nowhere, childish even, and like just really naked and like and there's a nakedness to it. That was like beyond his conscious intent. Like it just came out, it came up and out, and it's not something he chose to. It was choosing to just let it happen, let it come out, and it was this. And as a result, it was really honest, in a way.
There you go. Now you're talking.
It was really, it was really truthful, because for Todd, he had so many barriers around that. around himself that he had to let it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big thing to let honesty out,
Yeah.
and it's really to watch that moment. Really did something for me, like that, because that is the crucial moment where you get at a piece of just like raw, naked truth that comes out. Like how you proceed from that point, like, is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like the class laughing at him in that moment kind of is such a archetypal experience, like
Yes.
like laughing at, like,
Right.
it's an outsider, it's a
Mm-hmm.
something immature, undeveloped, something very individual.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you think that the laughers think of it as undeveloped? Do they recognize that? I mean, in my very limited experience with novice writers, mostly young, but not entirely, they often think that writers just write. Whatever you think of, that's it. But going over it and revising it, even just in your head, doesn't usually come up. That's a kind of foreign.
yeah, editing.
Right. Yeah, editing and doesn't. It's not something they're aware of. They're even that even crosses their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's most of it.
Yeah,
Is editing.
sure.
Yeah. So is
And
that?
following things through.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And to some extent having some, not even faith necessarily in the idea, but enough faith in the process to just keep doing it. Although it doesn't look good yet, and there's something missing, but you just keep
Yeah.
fiddling until it begins to take shape.
Yeah, and so that's what was going on in that moment. Like,
Yeah.
Robin Williams saw the thing taking shape.
Right.
He saw that and knew the importance of that moment, like, and how
Mm-hmm.
right it was that the class laughed.
Yeah. Because, yeah. Adolescent boys will laugh at almost anything that's
Yeah,
unusual.
of course, yeah, of course, yeah. They didn't know what was
Right.
happening. It was just out of nowhere, and it was
Yeah.
weird. And it was
Right.
but like, yeah. So that it was meaningful because that's such a. It displayed that experience for myself, like what happens internally. Like, I'll have my own chorus of like judgment about especially ideas like that seem like naked and immature, but also volatile.
Sure.
I'll have my own like classroom of boys that are like
Right.
and but that's that moment, that's like that's exactly when you should keep going. Like, that's
Right.
And that's where that loving teacher figure is so crucial. It's like, no, keep going, like that. This is exactly where you're supposed to be.
Right.
Like, we're actually somewhere now.
Right.
Keep going. And yeah, and so that was really nourishing. Really meant a lot to see, and is a good. It's become a really good model for me.
That episode. That
Yeah. What kind of attitude to take towards myself in those moments, like be Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Like be that persistent, affirmative encourager. Like keep it going, keep it going, keep
Right.
it going, keep it going.
That's how things get done. Do you remember what year that was done?
'90s.
It's not. Yeah, that sounds right. But
I think.
It's not critical.
What do you feel like talking about?
I don't know. I feel like lying in the sun.
Yeah, it's a rest week for me, technically.
This week that just started.
I'm in the end of it, last couple days of it.
Yeah.
But wanted to do this since we missed a week.
Yeah, I'm not exactly no, it's not a rest week. I wouldn't call it that, but the last available yard is now down with COVID, so I'm doing a correspondence course, which is such a pain. Yeah.
So, can treat it as a kind of low volume week.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Something I'm...
Oh, well, here's another thing I've been thinking about.
Oh, okay, okay.
This is also Chico specific, to a large extent, but not entirely. Earlier this year, I think, the Chico Peace and Justice Center folded, canceled their, or I don't know what you do with that, with your incorporation papers, but they went out of business. And there's a group trying to fill that void, or what they perceive of as a void, and I went to the second meeting yesterday, and it kind of gave me the willies. I mean, part of it is encouraging in that there are people who think enough about peace as a concept to want to actually do something. And that, that's good. And then we broke up into groups, for all practical purposes, committees, to talk about specific areas. Which reminds me of all the other nonprofits I've been in and around, and how easy it is to get bogged down in minutia.
Diluted.
Yeah, maybe diluted and probably diluted too.
That's what
Yeah. It could be both. But, I mean, the people are good-hearted and smart and experienced in, various ways.
Kind of suspicious of leaders.
Probably. But the guy who does most of the talking is very, gentle and inclusive, so it hasn't really come up yet. But, I mean, I've been wondering, should I be doing this? Is this really going to be helpful? Some of it seems to be, or some of the attraction for others is just being around like-minded people.
Not even necessarily trying to get anything done.
Right.
Getting to hang.
Right, getting to hang.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
An example of that is it was suggested at the first meeting, and then that we sing together as a, for the sake of solidarity or something, I guess. And when I heard it a few weeks ago, I'm sure I rolled my eyes. Not deliberately, but I'm sure I did. Spiritually, at least. And it wasn't awful. And
that's good.
But the most I could, get out of it for me was to try to find the harmony note, so that it sounds good to my ears, and I won't worry about the rest of it. Yeah, so I'm
That's
hopeful.
How you got into it, was like technicality.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and if I can find the right note,
exercise
then this will
your
be okay. Right. Yeah. And I'm hopeful. Probably the most discouraging aspect of it is that, and this is probably the only group I've been to in I don't know how many years, where I wasn't the oldest one there. And
It's kind of fun.
I'd bet there was nobody there under 60. Yeah, I would put some money on that. And while I like that in that there are a lot of things we don't have to say. We don't have to discuss.
Definitions.
Yeah, mostly like that.
Yeah.
Definitions and ground rules, and because everybody is polite.
Oh.
Everybody has been through a lot,
Mm.
and nobody wants to waste their time. And that's good. Nobody really cares about how they come off. Nobody's trying to impress anybody else. And that's all, kind of refreshing in a way. And along with that is any one of us could just drop right here now on the grass.
You wouldn't be like totally shocked.
It wouldn't be, yeah. No, and if there were a mention anywhere, nobody would say the tragic death of somebody. It would not be a big deal. Nobody would say, oh, she died too soon. No, she didn't. That's what happens. So, and I mean, I thought about that in terms of the future. Even if the Chico Peace Alliance has legs and gets organized and begins to do things, we need some youth. Period. No, I don't expect anybody there has much more energy than I do, and that's not very much. So while I'm glad we get together periodically and talk about things that I think are important, what's it going to look like in 5 years? Because there were, I don't know, I didn't count them. I'd guess 15 or so people. And in 5 years, several of that bunch is going to be gone. No
Sure.
question about it. And who can step up? I don't know. And maybe, if we can form some kind of structure or goals or something, then that can attract other people. Mm-hmm. And that's really good. It's necessary, because without that, there's not much to talk about. Yeah. Like otherwise, it'll be like the the National Democratic Party with Joe Biden leading, but only because somebody is wheeling him, and Kamala Harris. The less said about her, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so that's another thing I've been thinking about.
Yeah, it sounds like Peace and Justice Center doesn't know what the point of it is. Like,
no,
like, well, clearly, because it fell apart. Like,
right. And I have no details
what? Yeah,
about, how it
because most of the time,
crashed.
my suspicion is when people say peace and justice, what they actually mean is enacting some sort of punishment upon the bad guys.
Right.
And an end to my angst.
Right. Yeah. So I can relax.
Yeah. That's often my sense of, when people say such things, such words, they're meant in a negative connotation of what they're not happy with. But a positive version of peace is like, it's not very well articulated.
No.
So the point of a Peace and Justice Center won't be that. You're not going to get inspired young people unless the mission statement is clear. That's my thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a little encouraging for me anyway, in that the current title, the Chico Peace Alliance, doesn't mention justice.
They dropped that part.
Yeah, so far. And while from conversations in the group, it's clear that some of us are concerned about justice and that kind of retribution, and that implies. It's not official yet. So, and I think peace is a clearer direction. Yeah. And because I'm sure, and I'm guessing here, I'm sure anyway, that at least some of that group and a lot of others think of helping somehow Ukraine resist Russia is in aid of peace, or is on the side of the angels, or something. And I don't think that's so. I mean, I can't make that work, because it just seems like it sounds like the same argument that was used to justify the United States involvement in Vietnam. These people are having a hard time, and the worst thing that could happen to them is not all this death and destruction we're going to prolong, but it's for them to live under a political system with which we disagree, or of which we do not approve.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in Ukraine. And I don't remember where I saw this, but somebody suggested that essentially the same thing. If you really want to help the people, don't do anything. Leave them alone. Don't send them, products from Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin and all these guys who are making money hand over fist, because that'll just mean more people will die. That's all it means. More people will die until finally there's some kind of resolution or negotiation or whatever. Meanwhile, we're just trying to keep them from living under Russia's auspices. And I tend to think it's just a sham. It's just a way to pay off all those lobbyists who've been feeding Congress and for forever. It's a way to justify the existence of all those lobbyists. Because I've seen, was it email? Something from a lobbyist or somebody like that who was predicting that this was going to be a boon for arms manufacturers. It's about the only people it's a boon for, really.
Yeah.
And that was they could anticipate, higher profits in the third quarter or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And more, I think, following the money is really the surest way to get at the truth, the underlying motives of people and why they do things, especially organizations, nations. Because all that highfalutin rhetoric is just hot air. I mean, some of the politicians actually mean it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I suspect that a lot of them do when they start out, but once you get comfy enough, all bets are off. Yeah, and I don't think I was talking to maybe Erica. It's as though you hear, the guy next door beating his children, and you disapprove, and so you these days we would just call goons to go break it up, but it doesn't do anything for the father. It may do something to him, but it's not going to improve, his relationship with his children. It's not going to prevent that happening again. It just you interfere, to no real purpose. There may be a purpose, but no useful effect. Yeah, all of which just makes, if I'm lucky, I can then just drop all that and watch the praying mantis right here, right now.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a whole lot to say on that. I am personally just trying to get my own situation online.
Right.
And
And that's the most vital, it's the best thing you can do.
I think
It's a little kind of, little Jordan Peterson kind of what thing, you know, just
Yep.
wash your face, brush your teeth, stand up straight.
Yeah, I'm just trying to attend to my own thing and to my own ability to function. And yeah, just happiness here.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to do what I can here in NorCal and Chico. And
Yeah, and that's good. I mean, and what the main, well, I don't know, one of the thing that struck me anyway, is that you don't really have much to say, so you don't. You know, and I think there should be more of that. Because a lot of people don't have anything to say, but they don't let that bother them. Just, you know, you have to fill this void, airtime, something, with anything at all. So that one of the your prompts was, what do I want to know about you?
yeah, yeah. What's something you would know about me?
I don't know. I mean, the primary thing I'd like to know is your future, but you know, that's not happening.
I mean, you'll know.
Huh?
I said you'll know.
Yeah.
See.
Right, in good time, but I'm not going to know that now. I'm always interested to, learn more, but I don't feel like there's there are, big dark corners that are important and opaque to me. I mean, there's a lot I don't know about you, but I'm curious, just generally, but I'm not nosy.
I know.
You know.
I am in the way. I think that's partially why I put it forth, is to give you an opportunity to be
Yeah.
a little more nosy.
Okay.
so to speak.
Okay. So,
Your words. Not mine.
right there is to me. That interests me.
What do you think it is?
Let's see, what do they call those? It's been so long. It's
Oh, you really have to remember the word.
yeah. I thought of it earlier and then it went away. It's a little love bite,
Mm-hmm.
but there's another word for that.
There is.
Hickey.
There we go.
Hickey. That's it. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
that was fun.
I was wondering if that was a hickey or a rash.
A wound.
Yeah, right. But it didn't look like a wound.
No, it is a hickey.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good. That's a good sign. And see, for me, that's all I need to know. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So if I talk to somebody today and I say, I saw Ade this morning, he said, well, how's he doing? He said, well, he had a hickey. And that, that says enough.
So I'm gonna see if I were to volunteer answers to that question about me. Let's say that currently pushing to validate more of myself and realize more of myself in the world and through specific engagements and projects.
Mm.
And yeah, trying to manifest more of myself. I've sort of thought of extracurricular activities and interests, and extracurricular meaning not music,
Okay.
which has been the curricular
Right.
for 20 years.
Yeah.
I've considered it, I realized recently more explicitly that I've seen extracurricular activities, especially in the last 10 years when the effort has become just more and more serious with the creator, meaning it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
As a danger, as a threat, to the dream, distractions,
Mm-hmm.
as temptations into panhood,
Mm-hmm.
not being anything specific, like
Right.
lots of things.
Right.
Lost boy.
Yeah.
I've worried, like, I've had a kind of just basic, like, knee-jerk assumption of myself when it comes to other interests, like, oh, watch out, like,
Right.
oh, like, you might slip into
Yeah.
mediocrity
Yeah.
and panhood,
Yeah.
lost boy territory. And I recently just realized, like, it's just bullshit. Like, it's not accurate. Like, it's not what am I trying to say? Like, I've worried that I'm in danger of that, but I'm not actually like, I've only been in danger, like, there are ways in which I can see that in my life, like, slipping into, I can see that temptation to slip into unspecific and
Mm-hmm.
scatteredness
Mm-hmm.
of energy. But I've been just seeing, like, the things I'm interested in, like, I'm not trying to do everything. Like, they're specific things. They're very
Yeah.
specific things. And that was just kind of a small revelation for me. Like, as far as that worry, like, oh, yeah, I'm not trying to do everything. Like, the other things I'm doing are, like, pretty, there's specific
Right.
things, and it's like a handful of them.
Right.
Like, there's a lot in a way, but it's, like, not infinite. Like,
And
there's
they're
a set.
no real threat to the curriculum.
No, they are hugely in part of it. I've had to, think that through more, and
Mm-hmm.
I need to continue doing so. But they all very much play into this greater, bigger image of what I'm trying to be, and and so that was cool to see, like, it was relieving in some way, like okay, I can, it's good, it is a good thing
Mm-hmm.
to go forth with these things, and and it's good and, like, essential.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out, yeah, it's not like a
Not just
distraction. It's an essential thing that I do
Mm-hmm.
this, and more fully realize myself and. Um, and yeah, so I feel pretty overall optimistic, and overall, like, just more determined to just keep going, Like even when I'm not optimistic, I have a stronger like consecration of like continuity. Like I'm gonna keep going one way or another, and yeah.
Where does writing fit in your universe? If it's not writing music, I mean, I'm just talking about words.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a question on my mind.
Really?
Yeah, because it feels really... It's really important. It's really important. And that's one of the things that... one of the channels that Ade needs to exist, in which Ade needs to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I need it, and I need specific projects. I'm realizing, like,
Mm-hmm. Do you have any projects now?
yeah, there's a poem and an essay that I need to write.
Okay.
But
Right, because nobody else will do it.
yeah, because no one, and it's
Is this
a really important thought that is involved with it, and
same thought with both pieces?
No,
No.
not the same thought. All spiritually relevant,
Okay.
but no, different. Though there's a kind of complementary, like yin and yang thing to them.
Yeah.
One is more affirmation of some darkness, and then the other is like a effort to articulate something like life force.
Mm-hmm.
And
So when you say poem, is this a structured kind of metered rhyming thing?
rhymes may happen,
Mm-hmm.
so I guess no.
Okay.
No, it's speaking from the point of view of basically a monster, and a monster identity of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that started out as a very small seed poem that is really like an epic of kind of sorts in its full version.
Mm.
Yeah, at least in terms of poems I've written, it's a,
Mm-hmm.
it's more, it's like an epic of yeah, an epic. But yeah, with writing, I'm wanting to give myself, I want to get more scholastic about it as I feel the kind of energy that's brewing from just having these two ideas for like this essay and this poem.
Mm-hmm.
It's really been invigorating. Um, uh, yeah, and I need really strong assignments, clear assignments, in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where I just like blur into obscurity. and writing represents like a me, in a big way, me thinking and developing my philosophy, which is of the utmost importance. So,
yeah,
starting with these two things,
okay.
and that's what I'll begin once I get back to work this later time.
Mm-hmm.
Not yet. Later this week, once I step back in, that's part of what I'm going to be figuring out into my schedule, where writer Ade exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jordan talked, and there's a quote that talks about writing as organized thinking. Which I have used in class because it is a good way to find out what you actually think, what hangs together and what doesn't. Being able to see them, see the words, makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess so. The two things that I have on my plate, one is that, like the poem is kind of that, like giving articulation to, how I've been, and finding out a bit that there's an element of that, and there has been in the making of it. The other one, in a way, I could say is like part of my building my thought, building how I want to think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other part of writing why that feels very important, and really why it's so important for me to carve that out, or like see how it manifests in my life, make a space for it.
Mm-hmm.
Building my own thoughts, because essays and poems and things are a great way to do that, I can see.
Yeah.
And yeah, and Ayn Rand has been a big inspiration for that. I think that's what she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
She was building her philosophy through her writing.
Mm-hmm.
And um,
Mm-hmm.
it's also a part of, in me saying, like, I'm trying to manifest myself in different ways. Like,
Mm-hmm.
part of this push to write also is I'm trying to practice validating things that I've reached towards in ways and gravitated towards, but have had no, like, follow through on, and no, like, validating. I'm seeing that in terms of validating. Like, I've written a lot of different poems and things in development,
Mm-hmm.
but haven't followed through in that way of that Robin Williams would do. I haven't had the Robin Williams in me to follow those ideas through. And
And is that validation? Well, I guess yeah. What is validation?
I would say it's the affirmation that something is worthwhile and
Mm-hmm.
has value and is good.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said in a couple pods ago about my voice acting idea, like, I've had very few things that I've been willing to validate for myself. And so I'm in this journey right now of trying to, even if I don't necessarily want to do a thing, in the immediate, like, trying to just practice validating my impulses more and validating my what Ade seems to be reaching towards, and trying to see myself as like a in the third person, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Ade seems to lean towards these things, but these places have had there's been a lot of walls around it and no Robin Williams to carry it beyond the chorus of criticism or
Mm-hmm.
judgment, and so I'm just trying to do that more. And
So validation seems to be, it at least implies commitment. Is that a fair statement?
in this context, yeah, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to more deeply commit to myself, and it starts with just a moment of being like validating, like, this and that, like this idea, like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, valid idea, this valid
Mm-hmm.
idea, valid idea, um, and like all ideas are valid. Ade talking, all your
Right.
ideas are valid,
Right.
and then the process of validating, you could say, is
Right.
the committing,
Mm-hmm.
part of that commitment. And, um, and yeah, and one of the essays, validation, I suppose, yeah, that's a kind of a core part of what I'm going to talk about,
Mm.
and how validation um, is the same as like the bestowing of life upon oneself and one's ideas. And this isn't like the core thing of the essay, but it's part of the final result, which is that like that judgment of oneself, that process of judgment of oneself, which includes validation, is inescapable. And you have to judge yourself, or you just let others judge you.
Right.
Which is basically just being on life support.
Yeah.
Of the mercy of others.
Right.
And
it's like living on TikTok.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Yeah. So that basic decision of like judging yourself, taking responsibility for the fact of judgment of everything about you, and to the extent that you don't, that is delegated to someone else and what they think about that thing. And to the extent that it's delegated is to the extent that you're basically putting your life in someone else's hands, for them to say whether you should live or not.
Right, and somebody you don't even know.
Well, you know them.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it just falls into, it may not be somebody you know, but you will have some relationship with the people that you refer to in your mind. And clearly I'm still working it out, but like this is why I have to write it.
Right.
But validation of oneself and one's values in particular, like you gotta take that responsibility upon yourself, and then to validate yourself is basically to say that you should be alive.
Then this was not an error.
Your curiosity?
No, your existence was not just happenstance. This was
and that is a judgment call.
Yeah.
You have to make that judgment call, like it was my existence.
Right.
In this way, in this way, in this way, in this way, in this way. Is that good? Is that valid? Is that valid? Like every single point is a judgment call.
Yes.
And
which is okay as long as it's your judgment.
It should be your judgment. That's the like fully realized thing.
Right.
The self that takes full responsibility for their own, complete and utter responsibility for every aspect of their life, and their thoughts about it, and their philosophy about it, every area of life. And and the sense is that that's where real joy it's through that process that real joy can be cultivated. And this is going to be the scope of the essay. It's like joy is the goal. Joy is the highest accomplishment of any human being. And it requires like a life effort, a life amount of effort,
Yeah.
and personal process of judgment and validation and follow through on one's own values.
Have you started either one of them? Maybe notes or?
Yeah, notes for both, and I've spoken what I've just spoke
Right.
in different lengths. But that's what I'm
Cool.
gonna try to lay out. 'Cause I haven't, and it's exciting and challenging because I haven't. Yeah, it's some deep thought, and it's more than I have seen. Like Ayn Rand is the closest. In some sense, but I haven't seen this articulation of why joy is the highest achievement that I feel like I can do, that I need to do for myself, and what that means for a person, and why taking responsibility for yourself is so important in that way. Not in the duty sense, but like it's tied with like whether it's you exist or not, and whether that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's like tied up in your very existence, what you decide there or don't. Yeah, that judgment call is like same as being or not being. And so yeah, it's definitely exciting and kind of intimidating. Like I haven't.
Well, that's understandable. That's reasonable.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I'm doing right now is taking on things that Ade, third person Ade, feels the need to do, and like they're like very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Immensely challenging to me, and it's like, yep, that's
how you know you're on the right track.
It's one sign.
If it's daunting.
I don't think it's the only, because sometimes daunting is not like, step away from the cliff.
Yeah.
But it's a good, but it's okay. I'm not really taking it like it's, in a way it's kind of like, I'm on the right track, but in some sense it's like, it's like non-essential to me. Like, it's important that it's challenging, but it's not, that's not why I'm doing it. It's like, I just have to do it.
Right.
And the challenge is just like, well, that's just got to be okay that it's challenging.
Right, it just happens to be.
Yeah, this is just things I have to do.
Yeah.
And so and have to do again, I'm using this third person, like Ade is yearning for them. Like,
No.
there's these particular things that Ade like feels like he needs to do. So I'm gonna work on behalf of him. And that's been really helpful to separate a bit.
Just separate you from Ade?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the whole like It's one part of the Zen thing. But they don't get it, they fall short. And like when people say you need to like distance from your ego and stuff, like, and you're not just your ego, and like, yeah.
Right.
But then they just like hand wave it and then just lash their ego. But it's, what you're supposed to do is be Robin Williams with this kid, and the kid is your ego, and you're supposed to guide yourself lovingly and affirmatively. So that's what I'm doing, trying to do in a bigger way for myself than I've ever done. And
Good.
It'll be good.
Good.
It has to be good.
Yeah. Yeah.